Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Here is an interview of President Emerson Mnangagwa stating in no uncertain terms that Zimbabwe's new currency, the ZiG, is going to be a reality. Nobody objects to the ZiG other than to say, let's create an environment in which that currency has got a chance of surviving. People depend on a stable currency to have any hope of having an economic recovery, much less economic for the economy to thrive. But Mnangagwa is adamant. He has not changed anything that has destroyed the Zimbabwe currency in the past. And now he thinks that a change of name of the currency is enough to launch that new currency and make it survive. I'll just quickly listen to the interview he gave recently on the issue, and then we'll discuss it.
Excellency, I have to ask, does the Zimbabwe dollar have a future?
There is no other option but to have a future. I can tell you that even if you wake me up and say, what about Zimbabwe? Oh, it is to stay. It is there to stay, right? Those who have a doubt should quickly go to the laundry and have their mind cleansed, because every country to develop it must have its own currency. And they were having our Zimbabwe currency.
Benjamin, there you have it. We must have the ZiG.
Good day to you and to our viewers. Thank you for joining us. I mean, we have heard this before. I mean, this is coming from a guy that has said this before, to say, you know, mine is stronger than any currency in Southern Africa, and he has since gotten rid of that. And now, because he removed all the zeros that had accumulated, he is now bragging that his is still, you know, the best currency in Southern Africa. I mean, that is foolishness. Yes, I agree with you in your introduction to say, you know, Zimbabwe needs its own currency, but for a currency to survive, there are factors involved. Have we created those, you know, a conducive environment such that at least we can give it a fighting chance? You know, let's be realistic with the current situation that is there in Zimbabwe, where everything is closed shop, everything is informal, you know, and besides that, everything is being looted on top of that, right? I think this is what you need, what you call daydreaming, and somebody ought to wake him up to the reality that, you know, what you are saying, yes, Zimbabwe does need its own currency to thrive, but the environment that you have set for Zimbabwe is not conducive for such a thing to happen.
Yeah, I think the most unfortunate reality here is we have got a regime that simply does not want to listen to anybody. I'll come back to this issue of free, fair, and credible elections. The people of Zimbabwe did not have a meaningful say in who is governing the country last year. Zanu PF, Mnangagwa, rigged those elections. The regional body, SADC, the continental body, the AU, they had election observers in Zimbabwe. And they all came up with a report that clearly said those elections were not free, fair, and credible. That is the basis on which we have got to have this discussion. So the people of Zimbabwe did not have a say in this Zanu PF government ruling the country. The bottom line is it is illegitimate. And now the same illegitimate regime is imposing its will on the people of Zimbabwe. And like it or not, economic activity depends on the ability to be able to trade. And if you're going to start trading with a currency that is so unstable, and we've been this route before. This is not the first time that Zimbabwe's local currency has been losing its value. We've seen this happen before. The question is, have we learned anything? And in this case here, it's clear. The regime itself has not learned anything. And we, the people, if we had the opportunity to have a meaningful say in the governance of the country, would have said, well, okay, if the regime has failed to learn anything, let's get another regime. But in Zimbabwe, you don't have that option. We are stuck with Zanu PF. And so we are stuck with a regime that is refusing to learn anything. This is really the stuff of nightmares.
Yes, I agree with you. I mean, then it also comes to say, you know, when after you have rigged elections, and then you decide to give to the people something that they should use that's a store of value, and they don't have confidence in you because they never put you there in the first place. And for any currency to survive, you need consumer confidence, and the consumers are the Zimbabweans whom you denied that vote. Definitely, they're not going to trust you. They're not going to back you. Whatever you are selling, they're not buying. So hence you find that it's like you rightfully said, it's not the first time we've been there, and it's not the second time as well. We've been through down this road on numerous occasions, and doing the same thing over and over again and thinking that you will get different results this time around is madness. That's a state of madness. I think these guys are nothing short of delusional. They sit in their small little group, come up with fictitious ideas and agree because they are delusional. They're not in touch with reality. They're not in touch with the people. This is why they do all this here nonsense, and they end up, since people are not accepting, he goes, he imposes, and that doesn't solve anything. It just makes the situation worse. So very soon, this Zig will be carrying as much zeros, than it had before. That's what I think.
Yeah, it is tragic. Tomorrow, 18th of April, Zimbabwe will be celebrating, or will be 44 years old since the country attained its independence in 1980. So 44 years down the line, we are clearly failing to implement meaningful economic policies for the good of the country. Zimbabwe is a failed state. We can't even hold free, fair, and credible elections. And nearly 49%, some people put it much higher than that, of our population are living in abject poverty. The country's infrastructure have all but collapsed. The question then is, what are we really celebrating tomorrow? Do you see any reason for celebrating, Benjamin?
You know, there's this video clip that circulated, you know, just when Mugabe had won the election, and you know, people were so optimistic. Now we are going to get jobs. Now we are going to get, you know, houses and all that. You know, it was just a pipe dream. And here we are, 44 years down the line. It's still a pipe dream. It's sad. It's really sad, and you know, it's shameful on those that are oppressing. It's shameful for those that are taking advantage of people, whether be it in the opposition, be it in the ruling, you know, party. You know, people have fought for this country. A lot of individuals died, you know, for this country so that their children can enjoy. Now their children are jobless, worse off than what they were. You know, it's like yesterday where we had a child look into the mirror. You know, when you look into the mirror, you should be able to see the future, not to see the past. This is what we are now. You know, we are we are at a point where there's nothing to look forward to in Zimbabwe. So to get to the extent to say we are celebrating, there's nothing to celebrate. I mean, you don't need to be told or to just walk around Zimbabwe and see not the infrastructure. Just look at the people's eyes and the people's body language. You will see that, you know, something is very, very wrong amongst these people. These people are not happy. They're not genuinely happy. You know, where you find, you know, graduates are selling in the streets. You know, for you to even board a combi, you're being shoved. That and you know, this is somebody that is also trying to make a living in a very, very difficult situation. There's nothing to celebrate. This is why I say, you know, only the few that are benefiting and delusional people are the ones that actually have something to celebrate about. I cannot see any need for celebration. Absolutely none.
Well, I've got on the screen there the conclusion of the SADC election observer mission group, and it clearly states that the 2023 election, last year's elections, were not up to Zimbabwe's own electoral act, SADC's principles and guidelines on governing democratic elections, and therefore then this regime is illegitimate. So here we are, celebrating 44 years after independence, and all we have is an illegitimate regime that is imposing its will on a people that are really desperate for change. I think it is important that tomorrow people really spend the day reflecting on where are we going. This cannot carry on. This circus cannot carry on. This is within our powers as ordinary Zimbabweans to change it. We need to understand where are we in this mess? Why has it taken us 44 years and we still cannot stop this Zanu PF dictatorship? And I can tell you why. We really have not been paying attention at all. In the last 44 years, we did have the opportunity to end the Zanu PF dictatorship, particularly during the 2008 to 2013 government of national unity. The primary purpose of the government of national unity was to implement democratic reforms to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. The fact that many people out there still do not even understand what the GNU was about clearly shows that here is a nation that is not paying attention at all. Last year's elections were rigged. SADC condemned those elections. But because people participated in numbers in those elections, after being conned by Triple C that the party was going to win big because it had blocked all the Zanu PF rigging loopholes, SADC found themselves in a situation where they did not want to contradict the people themselves. If the people of Zimbabwe are happy with rigged elections, SADC decided that they were not going to do anything. We have got to take ownership of this Zimbabwe. We may not have been ready for independence in terms of making sure we're the democratic nation. We've taken now 44 years to learn, and we should learn something. The number one lesson we should have learned by now is that we are not going to have a prosperous nation until we address this problem of bad governance. Our problem is not anything else. It's bad leadership. The country was doing very well when we had good leadership. We cannot run away from that. The economy was strong under the white regime, although it was oppressive. But at least the economy was doing well. So what has gone wrong? We now have an oppressive regime that is incompetent to run the economy. This ZiG, this new currency, is going to lose its value. It's going to make it even more difficult for people to do business in Zimbabwe. Many people are going to lose their livelihoods. Because if you cannot trust the currency, how are you going to trade? Even those in the informal sectors, how are you going to trade? How can you sell somebody tomatoes for 100 ZiG? And when you go to the farm to order the next lot of tomatoes, you find that while the day before you bought 2 kgs with 100 US dollars, ZiGs. Today, when you go back, just a few days later, you find the prices increase for the same 2 kgs. Instead of paying 100, you're being asked to pay 200, 300, 500. So whatever you sold them for yesterday, you find the money you got is worthless. This is what makes it so difficult to do business under those conditions. Let's sort this mess out. We are not going to sort out the problem of the ZiG until we sort out the problem of the pariah state, the bad governance, the rigged elections. Those are the heart of why Zimbabwe is a failed state. So tomorrow, while you reflect on 44 years since the independence, reflect on where are we going from now on. And I would like to see people making a firm commitment, saying we must learn from the past. We must stop repeating the same mistakes, because that is the only way we are going to change the system. At the present moment, we have got an illegitimate regime. Zanu PF, they can say whatever they like. The truth of the matter is, They rigged 2023 elections. SADC said so, the AU said so, and even Zimbabwe's own Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission condemned those elections because there was nothing democratic about it. You don't even have a verified voters roll. People are frog marched to go and vote for Zanu PF. How can that be a free, fair, and credible election? We need change in Zimbabwe, but probably that change is going to come from the people themselves, and we need to change ourselves if we're going to deliver that change. Thank you very much, Benjamin. I don't know whether you'd like to give your closing remarks.
Thank you. I think you ended it beautifully, and with your words, I would encourage people to go in tomorrow and reflect, as you said. I think you did justice to the end, and I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Very much, Benjamin, and to the listeners, thank you very much for being with us tonight. And we seriously hope that we are turning over a new leaf. We have learned the lessons of the last 44 years. If it was a human being, you are now an adult. You should have your own family. You should start looking at, if you were married at 20, you would have children who are also old enough to get married. Surely by that time, you should have learned the lessons of life and have the common sense to say this is a mistake and you should not repeat it. You are no longer a teenager. You are an adult. If you were a human being, you would be looking at being a grandparent. You must be responsible. And you must act responsibly too. This issue of repeating the same mistake is totally unacceptable. We are being governed by an illegitimate government. Why? Because we accept a regime that rigs elections. We need to change that. Zimbabwe will never recover as long as we remain a pariah state. That is the truth. There is nothing, absolutely nothing to celebrate tomorrow. We should be hanging our heads in shame that we've come 44 years in this day and age, and we can't even hold free, fair, and credible elections. That is a fundamental right. Every Zimbabwean should have a meaningful say in the governance of Zimbabwe. And when you rig elections, you're denying the people a meaningful say in the governance of the country. Thank you again very much, Benjamin, for joining us tonight. And to the listeners, again, good night.
Thank you. Good night.